Well, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, Don,
Who
thanks
do I
for
have?
having me. Yeah,
Chad?
Chad McLeod.
Chad
Yeah,
McLeod, Don
yeah.
Burns.
Thanks for having me on.
It's my pleasure. Thank you. And I want to thank Cohats for letting me use this beautiful room.
Yeah, it's nice. We have a couple of podcast studios in town. You're probably familiar with them, but this is it's nice and it's fun to see. I think 4 or 5 years ago, there may have been one podcast studio, and now we've got a handful, and hopefully that means we have more local Lakeland podcasts and the demand for it.
It's
Whether we're talking about things Lakeland related or industry specific, it's just this is a nice space here at Cohatch for
and it's
sure.
growing. It's still Lakeland is growing so very
Yeah,
much.
yeah,
It's
for sure.
and I see a podcast here, a podcast
Yeah,
there. There's like growing
yeah,
and no one's. It's like it's just
yeah,
naturally occurring.
yeah, yeah.
We got such a fantastic.
Absolutely, yeah.
So tell me about Chad. Where are you originally
Yeah.
from?
So I am originally from Bartow, so Polk County native. My mom's side of the family, longtime Bartow family, and I grew up in Bartow and Highland City in elementary school and through the 8th grade. And so I say Highland City, it was the area off Cruise Lake Road in 540A that
Okay.
was mainly orange groves at the time. So we're talking late 80s, early 90s. And the first housing developments that were built in that area, we moved from Bartow into Highland City. And yeah, grew up there when I was in high school, right before my freshman year. So my dad was a police officer for Bartow Police Department.
Oh, he was.
And then he took a job as police chief in a small town in North Florida called Live Oak. And so we moved right before my freshman year of high school. I wasn't thrilled about it, but we moved to
I
North
can
Florida.
imagine.
That's where I went to high school. My dad's side of the family, and we still have McLeods who are in North Florida, but he grew up in that area. So it was kind of like going home for him, even though he had been in Polk County for a long time when he met my mom. And yeah, so I'll shorten the story. I graduated from high school in North Florida and then went to the University of Florida, go Gators. Um, Got out of college and worked for United States Senator Mel Martinez for about 5 years. I had an interest in political communications and policy. And so as a young college graduate, it was an opportunity kind of a lifetime, really, for someone who just to get a front row seat at things that I had never experienced on the federal level and doing all kinds of jobs that an entry level staffer would do in my 20s. And so that I didn't walk away from that experience saying I will definitely run for local office one day, but the interest was there, just in policy, in issues, government, and so that's always remained. And then 4 years ago, when I decided to run for the seat that I currently hold, I still think back to those early days of working in the U.S. Senate.
What did you study in college?
So I was a public relations major
Oh,
in the
okay.
College of Journalism at University of Florida. So I've always been in PR communications on some level. For about 10 years, my brother, who lives here in Lakeland, he and I started our own public relations and communications consulting firm and did that for yeah, it was almost 10 years. And it was exciting. I mean, all the things, of entrepreneurship.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
exciting,
Learning.
it's challenging, it's hard. There are days when you think this is what I'm called to and it works. And there are other days where you think, what have I gotten myself into? But we enjoyed it. We really did. And then about a year ago, so outside of the commission, I was running my business, but I took a job still doing communications, but it's for a nonprofit organization called Compassion International, which is a faith-based organization in Colorado Springs. But my job is
Oh, wow.
remote, and so we have programs all over the world, and really, it's a neat experience, and but still in that PR communications field.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I, there's a presidential voting campaign every 4 years. That's how much I know about politics.
Yeah,
I never paid attention. I take
yeah,
it all for
yeah.
granted. The tax dollars.
Yeah. So one of the things that I really like about being on the commission, and I've said this in some of the forums we've had recently, is that the local government is closest to the people, to our neighbors, to people in the community. Anywhere you go, you can just be walking around downtown or uh, kids' sporting events. I've got 3 kids. Oldest son plays soccer, so I can be on the soccer field or at church or wherever, and someone may have an issue or something that relates to city government, and you're able to one hear it, and then many times help connect them to the right staff at City Hall, or how do we? Oh, here's an issue we didn't even know existed. Whereas at the federal level, it's a little more in the abstract sometimes, or there are things you'll see the effects of policy, but not as close as you do in local government. And so I really like that about being on the commission.
That's fantastic. Yeah. What little I know about politics is it can get really gritty,
Yeah.
if you will, and that's
Yeah.
not for me.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point, Don. I really think a couple of things. We are fortunate in Lakeland and on our commission, we have a great dynamic as a group. And so we don't always agree on every issue. There are times where the vote is unanimous, but there are other times where it may be 5-2, 4-3. And even in that disagreement, we respect the process, the outcome, each other. We work well and move on to the next issue. And so I think there's space for that and a need for that today, to have leaders in politics who are focused on the issues and were able to disagree agreeably.
Yeah, I went to
Yeah.
that meeting last week over there at the Lincoln thing.
Yeah.
And sitting in the audience, it's so respectful of each other.
Yeah.
Everybody actually listen to each other.
Yeah.
And debate. I mean,
to be able to talk about issues and can have genuine policy disagreements or different approaches, and still respect the person sitting next to you. And so I think that is refreshing, because I know there are, like you said, there are a lot of people who look at politics and the political climate today and just say, that's not for me. I'll stay as far away from that as I can.
I'll pay my taxes. You guys decide for us.
Right.
So what are the biggest issues, if you don't mind me saying, in the future for Lakeland?
There are a number of issues. And I think as I started thinking earlier this year, do I want to seek a second term? Our terms were 4 years as commissioners. And there were a couple of reasons why I got to yes, that I want to run again. It takes some time just to learn the process, staff, departments, how do you move things from a policy standpoint, being on the commission. But then also just some of our challenges are long-term. And so I think of things like downtown redevelopment. We're sitting here in the heart of downtown at Cohatch, and we've seen a number of new businesses and ventures, restaurants, shops that have come online in the past 4 years. But there's opportunity for even more. I said when I ran in 2019, a lot of people talked to me about towns like Greenville, South Carolina, who had gone to visit, do a city visit, or just maybe they're on vacation from visiting family, and came back and said, we want to have a downtown or a city, kind of the central part of the city that is like a Greenville, that is really just
Greenville,
South Carolina. Yeah, and I hadn't been in years. I think I was in high school the last time I was in Greenville. So no doubt it has changed. There's a book called Our Towns that someone had given me early on in my term in the commission, and the authors go around to different towns and cover just some of the areas that have been revitalized, new redevelopment, really vibrant downtown areas. And that's a big thing for me as a priority looking at Lakeland. I think we have a very good downtown, but the potential to have really a vibrant space east of the Joinery, kind of the East Main district that's being talked about now, and some interest in redeveloping that side of downtown, all the way over to the RP Funding Center and even north to Monett Springs Park. And something that people come into our city, family and friends, and visit and say, wow, how do they do this? How do we do this? And I want Lakeland to be one of those that would be part of a book like Our Towns. And I think we're on that path, and there's a lot of energy here. And so that's one priority for me in the next term. Public safety. So we've had a lot of discussions recently about adding a new fire station in North Lakeland. And so we are, as a commission, actively working on that through city management to find land to build a new station, to get that built up and running. Just with the growth that we've had in our city, there's more demand for public safety and the need to have,
of course,
more, in this case, an actual physical, another fire station. So our firefighters can respond to calls in the window that they need to, and keep the community safe. But some of these things they do take time to go from the idea or identifying the need to actually we have a station that is up and running. So that is one for me as well.
Fantastic.
Those are two areas that are definitely priorities going into what is hopefully a second term.
Thank you for sharing that, because I remember, I moved here in 2003, and I remember downtown. I remember the hotel thing was completely empty, and I remember how bare it was.
Yeah.
And I had no idea. And to this day, How'd it happen?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm one of those.
Yeah.
I went to work. I came home. I went to work. I came home.
Right.
Took care of my family. Family's
Yeah,
priority
sure.
one.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Lakeland's one of the
Right.
most popular places in America.
Yeah. And that has been a challenge the past few years, just the pace of growth. Lakeland's not unique when you look out at the state of Florida. I mean, we are Lakeland Polk County in that top tier of the fastest growing areas in the state. But so many people who have moved to Florida and have found our state an attractive, desirable place to live. We understand that. And then even zeroing in on a community like Lakeland to say, oh, it's nice. Or the cost of living is, for many people, it's a lot lower than the states they're coming from. We have no income tax in the state of Florida. And so I can see why others have said, I want to live here. But it's a lot of people. And so that keeping up with that pace. And when we have projects that come before us, whether it's a rezoning for property, maybe it's a new housing development or apartment homes, sometimes it's challenging because we are seeing more of those, at least maybe not this year in 2023, but I'd say 2021, 22, a lot of new development.
Oh, okay. I see a lot of apartments going up over here.
Yeah.
Oh, there.
Yeah. And the demand is high.
Demand is high.
Demand is high for multifamily. And I've had people and employers come to me and say it's really hard to find housing for new employees, for people moving into the city in the rental market. For many years, Lakeland really hadn't had new market rate apartment homes that were being built. And so I think we were behind in that sense.
Were they not being developed, or were they just higher priced?
Yeah, I think you weren't seeing them being built, and maybe the demand wasn't there like it is today. And so it has kind of all come at us at once. And many of the approvals that we've done as a commission over the past couple of years, it will still take several years for some of those properties to be built and come up out of the ground. But it's just, there's been a lot of new growth and development as most of us have seen recently. And so that at times it is challenging.
Yeah, you set at the red light. I set the same red light almost every night, and you know how many cars to come through, and I've seen it grow. It grow. So Memorial Boulevard just gets full and full, and like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's a balancing act for sure. Trying to manage that, and in a community that I understand when you have neighborhoods or places where there's land nearby and it hasn't been developed for a long, long time, and then there's new development that's being proposed. And so sometimes it is challenging. But again, I go back to local government being close to the people. And so you hear from neighbors, from friends, from family, and it's a very real perspective of how this affects people's daily lives. And so we take those decisions and votes seriously because we know it impacts people every day.
That's so good to hear that not only are you worried about our future, but we're trying to manage it as it comes online, because it's going to continue.
Yeah.
I don't see it slowing down. I mean, our future is still super bright, right?
Yeah. I think there's still interest from people in moving to Lakeland, companies coming here and having their businesses, and there is a process for looking at when people contact me about concerned about growth, or hey, we're growing too fast. Our city planning staff, this is a point that I think sometimes gets overlooked, or maybe it's missed because it's sort of in the inner workings of City Hall, if you will. But our city planning staff, they begin the process with new development requests and applications for rezoning, and looking at, is this project compatible with the surrounding area? Do we have the adequate infrastructure, the supporting road network? And sometimes those projects don't advance all the way to the commission. They stop at the city planning level, or through that planning process, as a city, we can make the project better. We can say, this is to build this, to develop this site, here's what needs to happen to make it work in the area where it is. And so that's a big piece of the process, just that city planning staff. And we have some really good city planners on our team at City Hall.
Yeah, like you said earlier, just getting to know what goes on, what the process is. If you've just taken 4 years as our current commissioner and figure things out as quickly as you can, I have this problem where I automatically assume everybody knows everything I know.
Yeah.
Or I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you didn't know him?
Yeah.
It drives me nuts thinking everybody knows everybody. And everybody should know the system, but I don't.
Yeah, and I try to remind myself that even 4 years into this, that the things that I've learned because I've been in it and at this for 4 years, I would say a majority of residents don't know because you're busy. You're running your business, you're trying to provide for families, raise your kids. And unless there's an issue that just affects your neighborhood or you're passionate about, many times you're not following everything that comes out of City Hall. So I started, I'll put in a plug for my podcast as well. And I started right when I took office called A View from Lakeland City Hall. And it's something that I wanted to do to try and give people who aren't coming to our meetings. I kind of use my wife as a gauge because we've got 3 kids in elementary school. She works as well. And so she will ask me like, what happened or what's going on with the city, but she's not reading local news and following developments very often. So thinking of someone like her as the audience for a podcast, just to explain what are we doing as a commission, as a city, and what does it mean? Some of the things that if someone walked into one of our meetings and they've never been there, it can be confusing. Just the order,
I've only done it once.
The order of the agenda and some of the parliamentary procedure, and sometimes we move things through things really quickly. And so in my podcast, I try to break down some of the key decisions and just a little bit of a window into city government.
That's fantastic.
So, yeah.
I like what they do now. I subscribe to that Lakeland Minutes. Does that sound right?
Yes. Yeah.
I love that thing. I get really good informed.
Yeah.
It's awesome as well.
Yeah, we have Andrew's. He's probably not new anymore in our communications department at the city, but produces meeting minutes. It's a short video after every commission meeting, and it is great because, as you said, it's a highlight of some of the major decisions that we made, and it's a really we've gotten good feedback on that.
That's fantastic. Well, Chad, I appreciate your time. Is there a website that people can go to support you?
Yeah, so my campaign website is chadmcleod.com. McLeod's McLeod. So I always emphasize that because there are different spellings out there. But yeah, chadmcleod.com is my campaign website. If anyone has a city issue that they want to just contact me, my email address is chad.mcleod@lakelandgov.net. And I love hearing from residents.
That's fantastic. And you being a communication major, I know you're listening. I know you've got the art down and will respond to anybody who inquires.
Yeah, I try my best. I try. Sometimes we can get a lot of emails, but if somebody takes the time to email me individually, I always try to get back and respond and just try to address whatever question they have.
Fantastic.
Yeah, thank you, Don.
I thank you so much, Ted. God bless you, man. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.